I had just gotten home from work, the kind of long, dragging day that makes your whole body feel like it's sinking. I was hoping for nothing more than a quiet shower and a cup of tea, but the moment I turned the corner onto our street, something bright and unnatural caught my eye. There it was, parked right in the driveway like a smug little announcement. This shiny, candy apple red sports car. Its curves gleamed under the setting sun like it knew it didn't belong here. And standing beside it, phone in hand and practically glowing, was Sydney. I didn't even bother taking off my shoes when I walked in. "Whose car is that?" I called from the doorway. "Mine," she yelled back, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I froze. "Yours?" She appeared in the hallway a second later, grinning ear to ear.
Yep.
"Isn't she beautiful?" I named her Cherry. "Sydney," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice even. "You're 20. You work part-time at a cafe. How on earth did you buy a car like that?" She gave a little shrug. "Mom and Dad helped. They said I deserved something nice." That didn't sit right. Our parents weren't rich. Generous, sure, but this? Something twisted in my gut. I went to my room, opened my laptop, and logged into my bank account. I had to see it to believe it. And there it was. My house fund. Every dollar I'd saved from working 2 jobs, skipping vacations, and staying in while friends went out. All $50,000.
Gone.
My hands started to shake. I stared at the screen, willing the numbers to change, willing it to be some sort of glitch. It wasn't. "Sydney," I called, my voice tight. "Come here."
Now.
She showed up in the doorway, sipping a soda like this was just any other evening. "What the hell happened to my account?" I asked, turning the screen toward her. She blinked. "Oh, I thought you knew. Mom said it was all a family thing, like communal? You weren't using it right now anyway." I couldn't breathe. "Communal? Are you insane? That was my house fund. I've been saving for years, Sid. Years." She looked genuinely confused, like she couldn't understand why I was so upset. "But I needed a car, and you're always saying how I should be more independent." I stood up, heart pounding. "You stole from me." "It's not stealing if it's family money," she said, like it made any sense at all. I had never felt this kind of betrayal before. I couldn't even look at her. I just walked past her, out the door, and stood in the driveway staring at the ridiculous red car. It gleamed back at me like a cruel joke, reflecting everything I had just lost. The next morning, I drove straight to my parents' house. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I kept picturing that red car, Cherry, mocking me from the driveway, while Sydney slept like a baby under a roof I helped pay for. When my mom opened the door, she looked surprised. "Soph, everything okay?" I walked past her without answering, straight into the living room where Dad was reading the paper like nothing had happened. "We need to talk." They followed me in, concerned but clueless.
I didn't waste time.
"You gave Sydney money for a sports car. Did you take it from my savings?" Dad lowered the paper slowly. "Sweetheart, we didn't think you'd react like this." I just stared at him. "So that's a yes?" Mom stepped in. "We only borrowed from it. You weren't using it right away. We thought you'd understand." "Understand?" I said, laughing bitterly. "That you drained $50,000 I spent years saving? That you handed it to Sydney like she earned it?" "She needed it," Mom said softly. "She's been trying so hard lately. And you're always stable. You always bounce back." There it was. That same old excuse dressed up like a compliment. "You're strong. You can handle it. You always do." "Do you know how I got that money?" I said, my voice shaking now. "Do you know what I gave up?" They stayed silent, eyes darting away. "I covered your credit card bills when Dad lost his job. I helped with Sydney's tuition when she dropped out halfway through. I paid off that plumbing repair last winter so you wouldn't lose the house." Dad looked uncomfortable. Mom just frowned like I was bringing up ancient history. "I didn't take vacations. I skipped weekends. I worked double shifts. And all this time, I thought I was building a future, something stable, something mine. You didn't even ask me. You just took it." Mom sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. "We didn't think you'd mind." You're so responsible. We knew you'd figure things out. No, I said firmly. I always figure things out. I'm the one who fixes everything when you two make a mess.
And Sydney?
She never faces consequences because you both shield her from them. Dad rubbed his forehead. We just thought if we gave her something solid to start with. You gave her my solid start, I snapped. You didn't help her. You just stole from me and handed it to her like it was nothing. They went quiet. Not because they understood, because they were tired of hearing me upset. So I stood up, pulled my phone from my bag, and opened my banking app. What are you doing? Mom asked cautiously. I'm removing you from the joint accounts. All of them. Sydney, too. Sophie.
No.
You made it clear what this relationship is to you. It's one way. I give, you take. That's over now. Dad looked like he might say something, but I didn't give him the chance. If Sydney wants to play grown-up with her shiny new car, she can start by dealing with the insurance, gas, and loan payments. Without me. Mom's voice broke. We're family. Family doesn't do this. I said, my voice low. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't manipulate guilt just because someone is dependable. I finished removing access and stepped back, phone still in my hand. My heart was racing. My hands were trembling. They looked at me like I had just burned the bridge between us. But they were the ones who lit the match. I'm done being your safety net, I said. From now on, you all can learn to stand on your own. And with that, I turned and walked out. I didn't cry. Not yet. I didn't scream. I just left, one step at a time, trying to remember what it felt like to live for myself. I drove straight to Bryce's apartment. He didn't ask questions when he saw me at the door, just opened it and gave me that quiet look he always gives when I'm barely holding it together. I need your help, I said. I think my family's been stealing from me for a long time. He nodded. Come in. We sat at his kitchen table with laptops, notebooks, a stack of old financial documents I'd dug out of my files, and coffee that I barely touched. My hands moved faster than my thoughts, flipping through pages, opening bank statements, highlighting patterns. Bryce leaned over. Okay, this savings account. Why are there recurring withdrawals here in amounts like $120, $350, sometimes $900? I blinked. That account was for emergencies. I stopped touching it after 2020. He pointed. Then who's been touching it since? The more we looked, the worse it got. There were little things, monthly withdrawals labeled family support, random charges I didn't recognize but had let slide. Then bigger things. A credit card in my name that I never signed up for, opened in 2021, mostly maxed out. Loan papers from a community bank I'd never stepped foot in, signed with my name, but not my handwriting. Oh my God, I whispered. They've been doing this for years. Bryce didn't say anything right away. He just sat back, jaw tight, fists clenched on the table. This isn't just taking advantage. This is fraud, sophomore. They forged your name. I nodded slowly. They didn't just cross a line. They've been living on the other side of it. That's when my phone buzzed. I ignored it at first, but it didn't stop. One message. Then another. Then 5 in a row. I finally picked it up. Sydney. I didn't mean for it to go this far.
I'm so sorry.
I just wanted one nice thing. Mom, please don't cut us off. Your dad isn't feeling well. The stress is making everything worse. Dad, we know we messed up, but this is still your family. Don't destroy everything over money. Sydney again. I've been crying all day.
I didn't know you'd take it this hard.
Please don't hate me. Mom again. Let's talk before you do anything drastic. Forgiveness is what holds us together. I dropped the phone on the table like it was on fire. They're not sorry, I said flatly. They're just scared I'll do something about it. Bryce looked me straight in the eye. And are you? I didn't answer for a long moment. I just stared at the phone, the messages blinking at me like a trap.
Guilt. Tears.
Illness. Forgiveness. All the tools they'd always used to keep me in line. But this time, it didn't work. I'm done cleaning up after them, I said. I'm filing a report. I'm freezing every account they ever touched. I'm getting a lawyer. Bryce nodded. You sure? I looked at him. And for once, I didn't feel unsure. I didn't feel scared. I felt angry, focused, awake. They made this choice a long time ago, I said. Now, they get to live with it. Filing the identity theft report felt like cutting a cord I'd been tied to my whole life. I sat at the police station with a folder thick with evidence, bank statements, forged signatures, emails. The officer asked if I was sure I wanted to press charges against my own family. I didn't even blink.
Yes.
I want it all on record. Word got back to them faster than I expected. That night, I came home to find them waiting outside my building. Sydney was pacing by the curb, face blotchy and eyes red. My parents stood closer to the entrance, Mom wringing her hands and Dad glaring like I was the criminal. Sophie. Mom rushed toward me, her voice breaking. You didn't have to go to the police.
We can fix this.
Please, honey. I kept walking. You had a chance to fix it. Years of chances. Sydney reached for my arm. They're going to take everything. You're ruining us. I pulled away. I didn't ruin anything. You did that yourselves. Dad's voice was sharp. You're going to destroy your own family over some money? I turned to him. Some money? You forged my name. You used my identity. You signed for loans I didn't even know existed. People from nearby apartments started gathering near their balconies, watching. I didn't care. I was done hiding. Eliza came out of the lobby just then, bless her timing. She walked right up beside me and put her hand on my back. Let's go inside. You don't owe anyone an explanation. My mom turned on her. Who even are you? I'm her friend, Eliza said coolly. And her realtor. You know, what that house fund was for before you emptied it. That shut them up for half a second. I didn't wait for more. Eliza and I walked straight past them into the building, the heavy glass doors cutting off their voices like a lid on boiling water. Upstairs, Bryce was already in my apartment, seated on the couch with his laptop open. It's done, he said when I walked in. All the fraud alerts are in place. I pulled your credit report, too. I tossed my bag on the chair. And he hesitated. They used your name as a guarantor for a condo. 3 years ago. It's in foreclosure now. I closed my eyes. Anything else? 2 loans. One was for a personal loan, the other was for a renovation loan on a property in Dad's name. All tied to your credit. I sat down slowly, the weight of it hitting me like a slow, steady wave. How much? North of 100 grand. Maybe more once interest kicks in. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just nodded. Okay. A knock rattled the door. Bryce looked up. You expecting anyone? I shook my head. He opened it cautiously, and 2 uniformed men in work boots stood outside. Vehicle repossession for a red sports car registered to Sydney Ward. You know where it is. I laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time in days. Oh, I know exactly where it is. We gave them the address, and Bryce even pulled up a photo from my phone to help. As they left, Eliza handed me a cup of tea and sat beside me on the couch. You know this isn't your fault, right? I nodded, but the truth was, part of me still felt like I was peeling off layers of something sticky that had clung to me since childhood. Duty, guilt, loyalty twisted into chains. But as I sat there with Bryce and Eliza on either side of me, I felt something else too. Relief. They had taken so much from me. But not everything. Not anymore. I sat across from the detective in a small, windowless office at the station, a manila envelope of documents spread across the table between us. Every bank statement, every forged signature, every unauthorized loan. Each piece was part of a puzzle that had taken years to build without my knowledge. You've got a strong case, the detective said, flipping through a copy of a loan agreement I'd never seen before last week. Whoever did this knew how to cover their tracks, at least well enough to avoid detection for a while. But they got sloppy. I nodded, feeling the tension in my jaw. They never thought I'd look closely. They assumed I'd keep cleaning it up like I always have. We spent nearly 2 hours mapping the timeline, Sydney's sudden tuition payment, the condo application, the loans from smaller banks that didn't always verify signatures carefully. There were patterns now. A timeline of betrayal. The detective agreed to push the case forward for formal investigation. With the dollar amount as high as it would likely reach the DA. When I left the station, the air felt sharper, brighter. Like I'd taken off a backpack I hadn't realized I'd been wearing for years. I was barely back at my desk the next day when Sheila, my boss, knocked on the door to my office. "Got a minute?" She stepped in, closing the door behind her. "I heard from HR this morning. A reference check came through for someone named Sydney Ward. She listed you as her supervisor at her company on a resume that says she worked here for 2 years. I stared at her. "You're kidding. She never worked here, right?" "Not for a minute." Sheila sighed. "That's what I thought. I flagged it, but I wanted you to know. And listen, if you ever need time off, legal support, anything, just ask." I actually filed a report. Identity theft, fraud. It's all tied together. Sheila nodded slowly, then offered a small smile. "In that case, I think it's time we made your position here a little more secure." I blinked. "What?" "I've been watching the way you handle pressure. You've held this department together with duct tape and grit for the last year. I'd like to offer you a promotion. Senior project lead. Full benefits. Higher salary." I tried to speak, but nothing came out. I hadn't felt recognized like this in years. "Thank you," I said finally. "You have no idea how much that means right now." Later that evening, Eliza sent me a screenshot. GoFundMe. Help Sydney rebuild after a family betrayal. The description claimed I'd turned on her without warning, filed false charges, and left her homeless and traumatized. There were selfies, tear-streaked, in front of what I knew was her friend's apartment, not a shelter. "She's weaponizing your silence," Eliza texted. "You okay?" I stared at the post. It had $600 in donations already. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I opened my spreadsheet, the one Bryce helped me build. We'd added every account, every transaction, every forged signature, every loan where I was unknowingly listed as guarantor. The total sat at the bottom in bold red, $308,451.74. More than $250,000. My life's work, my peace, my credit, all used like a piggy bank they never expected to be empty. But I wasn't empty. I was waking up. I screenshotted the GoFundMe and added it to the evidence folder. If she wanted to play victim in public, she could explain it to a judge. Bryce called just as I was shutting down my laptop. "How are you holding up?" "Better than yesterday." "Good. I talked to a friend who works in financial recovery law. If you want, I can set up a meeting. They might be able to help you sue for damages." I smiled faintly. Set it up. For the first time, it felt like I was steering the wheel of my own life again. Like the version of me they tried to erase, the one with goals, boundaries, a future, was back. And this time, she wasn't going anywhere. The courtroom was silent as I walked to the front, a folded piece of paper trembling slightly in my hand. The wood floor echoed under my heels, and for a second, I felt like I might not be able to speak at all. But then I looked up and saw them. My parents, sitting beside their lawyer, heads lowered. Sydney, a few chairs away, arms crossed tightly over her chest, glaring at everything and everyone. None of them would meet my eyes. The judge nodded. "Ms. Bennett, you may proceed with your victim impact statement." I unfolded the paper, took a breath, and began. "My name is Sophie Bennett. For years, I believed I was simply the responsible one in my family, the one who could be counted on, the one who always said yes, picked up the pieces, and stayed quiet. I didn't realize, until far too late, that what I thought was love and loyalty was manipulation and theft. I worked for everything I had. Every dollar in my savings, every promotion I earned, every bill I paid. I helped my parents when they fell behind. I supported my sister when she dropped out of school. I gave until I had nothing left, because I believed family meant sacrifice. But what they did wasn't about sacrifice. It was about control. They stole over $300,000 from me. Not all at once.
Slowly.
Deliberately. forged my name,
took out loans.
opened credit cards. And when I found out, they told me to forgive, that it wasn't a big deal, that it was just money. It wasn't just money. It was my life, my future, my peace of mind. And they took it without asking, without remorse. I looked up from the paper then, directly at my parents. You taught me that family comes first, that we take care of each other. But what you meant was that I take care of you, no matter what it costs me. And when I stopped, when I finally stood up and said no, you turned on me. Sydney let out a scoff, but I ignored her. I'm here today because I refuse to carry your choices any longer. I won't shoulder your debt. I won't clean up your messes. And I won't accept your version of love, the kind that erases who I am just to keep you comfortable. I folded the paper and stepped back, hands trembling but steady enough to hold the truth. The judge gave a slow nod. Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Then he turned to the defendants. After a brief recess, the courtroom filled with murmurs. The plea deal was official. My parents had pleaded guilty to identity theft, fraud, and forgery. Sydney refused, hoping for leniency. She testified that she didn't know the full extent of the damage, that she trusted our parents. But when the sentencing came, the judge didn't hold back. To exploit a daughter's trust, her financial stability, and her legal identity over the years is an act of sustained, deliberate harm, he said. This court finds each of you responsible for the choices you made and the life you derailed. He handed down the sentences like weights dropping in water. My father, 5 years. My mother, 3 years. Sydney, 18 months plus mandatory financial counseling. All three were ordered to pay restitution in full, $308, for 51.74, over the next several years. Any income, assets, or inheritances they received would be garnished until the debt was repaid. As the judge read the final terms, Sydney stood and shouted, "This isn't justice. She's turning her back on her own family." The bailiff moved toward her, but the judge just raised a hand. "Ms. Ward, you've already spoken. It's time to listen." I didn't respond to her. I didn't need to. She could scream all she wanted. I was done listening. When it was over, I walked out of the courtroom alone, the spring air sharp and clean on my skin. I deleted their numbers on the steps outside, blocked every email, cut every thread they'd used to tug at my guilt, my love, my fear. And for the first time, truly, I felt free. The sun spilled through the windows of my new kitchen as I stood barefoot on the cool tile, sipping coffee from a mug I bought just for this place. The house wasn't massive or flashy, but it was mine. White walls, wooden floors, sunlight in every room. A little garden out back, where I'd started planting things that would grow only if I cared for them. No one else's name was on the deed. No one else had access to my accounts. I'd bought it with clean money, hard-earned and untouched. It felt like stepping into a version of my life I'd always imagined but never believed I could have. At work, things had changed too. My promotion was official. The title on my email signature now reads Senior Project Lead, and people came to me for advice. When HR asked if I'd be willing to speak at a regional conference about recognizing financial abuse and identity fraud, I said yes, without hesitation. The idea of telling my story, not as a victim but as someone who had survived it, felt right. Not for sympathy, but for power. Because there were others like me, and they needed to know it was possible to get free. One afternoon, my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. A Prism line. I stared at it for a few seconds before answering, part instinct, part curiosity. "Hello." There was a pause. Then my mother's voice, quiet and strained. "Sophie, I just wanted to hear your voice." I didn't respond. "I think about you every day," she went on. "About what we did. About how far things went. I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that I'm sorry." I stood still, looking out the kitchen window at the garden. The flowers were just beginning to bloom. "I'm doing okay," I said calmly. "I have a house. A career. I'm finally happy." Another pause. "That's good," she said softly. "That's all I ever wanted for you." I hung up. Not out of anger, not even bitterness, just certainty. I didn't need to carry her voice anymore. I didn't owe her anything. That evening, the house was full of laughter and music. Eliza brought a bottle of champagne, Bryce made his famous pasta, and a few friends from work brought homemade desserts that filled the whole kitchen with warmth. We ate in the backyard under string lights I'd hung myself, the kind of night I used to only watch other people have. There was no drama, no guilt waiting in the corners. Just joy. Just people who showed up, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Bryce raised a glass. To Sophie, who rebuilt everything from the ground up and made it look easy. Everyone cheered. I smiled, feeling the truth of it settle deep in my chest. I hadn't just escaped something awful. I had chosen something better. And I wasn't just free. I was home.